Okay, all right. Um, okay, everybody. I've got the link. We are streaming. We are live. I got the link in the chat, and I got a couple good memes. Serving up a couple decent memes on the day. And hey, everybody. My okay. Let me. I had pulled up the class schedule earlier, and here's what we're gonna do. Okay, we are gonna do. Today is Thursday the 14th. We are going to go the 19th with personal and professional ethics, and then the 21st with the literary extravaganza. And then we're going to be done. And we are not going to be here on Monday the 26th. And I am going to do Nico's for you guys because I'm a nut. And we just have to figure out like we got to figure out when, and we're not going to be able to make everybody happy on that. So I don't know. Let me ask you this. By the way, so my audio is still good, right?
Yeah.
All righty, thank you. And your audio should be going through to YouTube. Looking at the schedule. Okay, here's the question. I have an idea. I have a brilliant idea. On the 26th, okay? So this is survey. I'm going to do a survey on Tuesday, April 26th. If we just had class on that day at Nico's at 4, right? Just meet at Nico's, then I mean, does anybody have like class right after this? Or you could kind of like duck in, get out. Okay. Hang on a second. I'm dropping the survey right now. Survey says on Tuesday, April 26th, it would work to do Nico's during class period. That would be on Tuesday the 26th. Now, the alternative would be, when is reading day or prep day? Okay, the 28th is prep day, and I think I might get in some trouble. Uh, I think I might get in some trouble trying to do something like that, like on the prep day. Is M is maybe, right? I trust whoever said M. That would be Matthew. Yeah, okay. Because the other thing you could do is, I could be there probably, let me see, on the 26th. Yeah. I could start at like 3:30. So we could do it. So are you with me here? Are you picturing what I'm trying to say? If this is class period, I could go from, a half an hour before it to a half an hour after it. So that if you have a class right after, then you come earlier. But if you have a class, I can't make this, I feel like I'm going senile, right? If you have a conflict right afterwards, you come early and leave a little early. Or if you have a class right beforehand, then you get there just a little bit late, but then you can stay a little later. And the only thing it would crush would be somebody that has like class before, not us, then 305G, then another class, or some combo of that. And like here we are, and then there's like a class on one side and work on the other, or vice versa. So we could do, this is Nico's in Provo. It's just 10 minutes from campus. So the idea would be Tuesday, April 26th, 3:30. So we normally go 4 o'clock to 5:15. So it would be 3:30 to 6. But here's the key. This is the key. We're trying, yeah, near the hospital, Dave, exactly. Um, so, okay, I feel like my system's being staggery. Am I losing audio? Okay, but this is really important what I'm about to say. You can't show up at 5:59 and order pizza. That's too late, okay? We're trying to be, so the goal is uh, at 3:30 is when we can start ordering pizza or whatever it is you want, okay? And then by 6 o'clock, we're done eating, okay? So I'm going to do this one more. Hang on, I'm typing the notes in here into the thing. If we say class starts at 4, yeah, let's go. Let's go. 5 o'clock is end of ordering pizza. Okay, tell me what you think of that. So the idea would be nice. I like the pizza slice votes, right? So 3:30 we start is when we can start ordering. So from 3:30 to 5 is pizza ordering time. That's it. Then I don't really care, how long you want to hang out and finish eating. If you're ordering by 5, you're probably done eating by 6. And I don't care when everybody's gone. I just want to have a limit to I can't be ordering pizza for 2.5 hour window, turning it into a 4 hour time commitment on my part. Besides the fact, if we spread out everybody, it's cool to have free pizza and meet a couple people, but I think it's ideal if we have the largest concentration we can get. And the beautiful thing is at 3:30 is off peak, and by 5 we're done ordering. Um, and I'll let Nate know. He's the owner. I'll let Nate know that we're going to be bringing a little bit of a mob. It'll be, and then, so I guess the question is, if you could, there are 27 people in the chat right now. There were only 13 that responded, less than half. So can I get I got 9 thumbs up on this. Uh, let's see. Okay, give me the thumbs up. Okay, do you see at the bottom there where it says 3:30 start ordering, 5 o'clock end of ordering, 6 o'clock everybody's gone? Give me a thumbs up if that works for you. And it's also okay if it flat out doesn't, to give me a thumbs down. Since that's normal class time and we flip it to before and after, it's a rare conflict. And I do know going in that there's no way we're going to please everybody. Like if we did it middle of the day on Saturday, we would lose people. I don't think I should do it on reading day. Reading day, final prep. The other question. Okay, so Gidded was the only one that voted thumbs down. There are 17 votes so far. There are 27, which means 10 of you just logged in to get credit for being here and aren't listening. That's fine. You don't get pizza because you won't know about it. Um, but my question, Gidded, is if we moved it to Thursday, during the final exam prep day, is that any better, for you? Man, my ideal would be to not exclude anybody. That would really, really be my ideal. So Dave would miss it. Elena would miss it. Yeah, that's the dilemma, right? And I don't think there's a time that literally just would work for everybody. And I do want to, bringing this many bodies, I would want to, bring this many bodies. I really do want to be off peak. I can't be dropping 20 people on them on top of a regular. They're fairly busy these days. Yeah. Um, I mean, honestly, losing 2 out of 20. I mean, like, no offense to the two, right, to the 10%, but in terms of making everybody happy, that's probably better than I expected. But it is because we're working around class. Now, the other thing, one other thing you could do, okay, back for Get It and Elena, who said that they couldn't make it. What if, I mean, the other option is class goes, there's normal class period. Now we've been remote, so this presumes you're, starting from campus, which is probably a bad assumption, right? Um, but the other potential is since we're normally 4 to 5:15, if you were on campus at 4 or 10 till with a previous class, um, and you got there at 4:30, you know, 4:20 even, 4:20, 4:30, ordered some food, and then even just took it to go, but had a chance to just say hi. That also can work. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be that cool. Get it in Elena. Does that open it up? If you recognize that you can show up, do an order to go, just show up, shake hands, say hi, see the group, and does that change the dynamic for anybody? Just keep that in mind, okay? For you two that said that it would be a deal breaker. Even like again, if you show up, do an order, you have your food within 15 minutes or so, take it to go, grab some food, or grab, say hi to people. Okay. And I think it'll be fun. It'll break my bank. It won't. I don't think It'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to do that with everybody. Um, okay. All right. So that's the deal. And I will send out an announcement to everybody. Um, I'm making a note to myself. Okay, so this is a fish. Tuesday, April 26th, 3:30 to 6, and food ordering is between 3:30 and 5. Okay? Do you see it? I'm going to make this announcement via Canvas. And I really hope, and for Elena and Get It, I really hope you can figure out a way to be there. Just love to see as many of you as can make it. And this is not mandatory. This is just like, you know, come hang out, say hi, eat some pizza, meet with some of your friends. Maybe get to know some of the people you've been, uh, you know, arguing with, via on Discord. Um, so put a face to the handle. It's in some cases to the name. So all right, okay, everybody good? All right. Um, Survey question, informal survey, not a survey like we normally do. What are the things that are the most weighing on you when it comes to employment is our topic today. Okay. What is nagging at you when you think, oh shoot, YouTube is being clunk? Am I dead for a second? Okay, all right, still good. No, I swapped over to YouTube, and it had the little yellow banner saying, it's no bueno, not receiving enough video. Anyway, yeah, no, I tacked on, by the way, the two memes of the day. One was tech support. That's a great career. And the reason why they have to do that is that people are just idiots, you know. There's famous tech support stories about my favorite one is the one where the person calls tech support and it's like, you know, is your computer plugged in? You know, first question, right? When dealing with whatever, grandpa and grandma, is your computer plugged in? And they're like, I'm not sure. Well, and they're just like, well, just look, follow the cord and look to see, is it plugged into the wall? And they're like, well, I can't see the wall. And they're like, why not? You know where this is going, right? And they're like, well, because there's a power outage in my neighborhood, you know? You're calling tech support because your computer won't work in a power outage and you haven't connected the dots on this thing. Okay. So, um, anyway, and then the other one is more just, you know, everybody knows I'm a bass player. And this is why I'm not playing bass professionally because there's another one that was told to me by my one of my drummer friends who said his thing was what's the difference between a drummer and an extra large pizza? If anybody know the difference between a drummer and an extra large pizza? Anybody want to make a guess? The extra large pizza will feed a family of four. Patoom. Yeah, actually, the extra large pizza will feed a family of four. Yeah, I actually have drumsticks right here. Um, I have a practice pad right here under my desk, so I can pull it out and just and practice drumming while I'm watching something on the tube. Um, yeah, that hurts. That hurts. Um, Here's a drumming joke that I heard from Dave Grohl. What was the last thing the drummer said? Hey guys, why don't we try some of my songs? That was Grohl explaining why he didn't propose to Kurt Cobain that Nirvana used some of his songs. There we go. There's Dave. Yeah, rest in peace, man. Taylor Hawkins. Brutal. Okay, last thing about that. Anyway, this is just about the memes, but I'm gonna do a quick survey. I feel like I'm all dead here on the staggery on the keyboard. Sorry, I'm delayed. I bet my audio is bad. Yeah, Dave, I am saying that dropping out of school to start a punk band is a really bad idea. Depending upon whether you want to make money. I'm having really slow. Okay. All right. This is the, again, rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins. Brutal. And for those that are Foo Fighters fans, I want to assess what you think is going to happen to the band. And we'll get on. It relates to employment and career. Um, you know, Grohl is one of those guys that, you know, kind of, you know, played the lottery in a sense, you know, dropped out of high school and um, joined a number of bands, including Scream, which was he eventually joined Scream, which was like one of the biggest punk bands. Anyway, I predicted that the Foo Fighters would cancel all of their performances on the docket and revisit later. My new prediction is that Grohl is going to disband, that the Foo Fighters will be over. Yeah, exactly. That's right, Steve. Steve said, I think Foo Fighters won't survive only because I'm unaware of another person like Taylor was for Dave. Basically, brothers. Right. No, exactly right. And there's some, let's get on to our topic, but there are bands where they lose the drummer. So this would be Neil Peart in Rush, Keith Moon, The Who, John Bonham, Led Zeppelin. Um, those are big ones, but those are situations where you have like a power trio musically. There are only three music. There's a vocalist, but only three musicians in the band. Am I frozen still? Hang on. I'm re-killing all the potential cycle hogs. All right. No, anyway, in all those cases, you have a power trio with an iconic drummer whose sound is so essential to what it is you're doing that they are in effect irreplaceable. And so when Bonham dies, Led Zeppelin's over. When Peart dies, Rush is over. Um, there are, however, bands where the drummer is not iconic and can be replaced. Taylor's unusual in the sense that he was one hell of a drummer, maybe certainly one of the very best drummers working in rock music, but musically irreplaceable, I don't think so. Emotionally irreplaceable, I think so. So that's my prediction. Foo Fighters will disband by the end of the year. And it'll usually take, and I think it'll take 6 months before the announcement is made. That's my prediction. Okay, my friends, let's talk about careers. What do you care? So, let me see. What was the first comment? Steve said the possibility of AI programming, AI that makes and creates programs. It's never going to happen, Steve. It's never going to happen. That's my prediction. If it ever does happen, I'll be dead. I'll be long dead before that happens. And the reason, Steve, comes down to the amount of understanding required to meet. The reason is not because programming is hard, which it is, and making programs that can program isn't hard, because it is, but because requirements are human by their nature. Requirements elicitation is human by its nature and is never going away as a thing that humans have to do. That's my take. Am I still there? What else is bugging you? What else are you concerned about relative to career and employment? Usually there are questions like, um, Dave said, for me, I don't want to get boxed in. Dying in some SQL hole doesn't sound real fun. Okay, let me say this, Dave. Um, not an issue, not a thing. Okay, and let me just say this relative to dying. Frozen says, I've wondered if this will die as a profession one day. Okay, and the answer is no. Not in the remainder of my lifetime, but crap, right? I mean, that could be a year, who knows? Um, assuming I've got another 30 good ones left, it is not, the profession's not dying. And it really kind of relates back to what Steve said. Requirements are just brutal. Requirements are the thing, the vision, the creativity, the creation of the idea. That's the stuff that I think it's meta level thinking at a level that I think, if we reach the point where AI is doing all of that, then it's just iRobot all over again. And I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Sort of the ultimate Turing test. Okay. But no, so Dave, dying in some sequel hole. No, there's no such thing as actually getting boxed in this career. It's moving, it's changing, it's dynamic. You can gain some expertise in a particular narrow space, where it's comfortable to be in that space. And maybe it's a space you want to work in, or maybe start down that road and like, I just don't want to keep doing this for the rest of my career. Don't. You get to do something else. Go retrain. It's never been easier to retrain, right? Jump on Coursera or Udemy, um, which is Udemy. There's a bunch of, whether it's YouTube videos, whatever, retraining, launch a little project, do a little thing, take all the chops you did. Now, it's going to be easier to take the chops you've acquired and pivot to something adjacent to it. From there, you pivot to something adjacent to that. But you've always got degrees of freedom in this field. And the main reason, who asked that original question? Dave. The main reason is because the field is constantly dynamic. It's constantly organic. It's never sitting still. It's always changing. And because it's always changing, you always have an opportunity to ride that evolution, that growth. So that's my view on that, Dave. Steve said, I can't imagine a day when something doesn't need to be programmed. Same. Okay. There's just too much creativity in the task of programming. If you know exactly what you want built, having an AI that can intuit all of that, that's possible. Possible. Right. Micah says the mental model in the head of the programmer. Did you get that from B, Micah? Because that's one of the things I always preach on. Um, the mental model in the head of the programmer is everything. Um, Frozen said, I've heard the need for programmers is slowing down. I don't think that's true. And the shortage of programmers isn't as big, and I don't think that's true. Now, I could be wrong, but I think there is a desperate shortage of programmers still. I mean, there may be some bridging the gap, but man, you guys, you're going out into the best money market for um, software developers in history. It's unprecedented how much money there is to be made as a good developer. The other thing, too, by the way, is if you suck, having the degree isn't going to help you if you suck. So for those of you that statistically, there are probably at least a couple of you. And if you're in this classroom, you're probably not listening right now anyway, even though you're logged in. But there's a couple in any given class who have cheated their way through the program. You got to understand it is not possible to cheat your way through your career. All you can really do is damage the UVU brand on your way out, and then go off and suck, and then eventually not have a career in CS because you don't know how to do it. You can't remember. Oh my gosh, do you remember a few years back where there was this guy who was interpreting like sign language? Who remembers this? For like heads of state and stuff. And dude was like, didn't actually know sign language. He was just standing up there, moving his hands just creatively, like and eventually when he got to a big enough audience, the people who actually were hearing impaired or who understood and spoke sign language we're looking at that going, well, that's not as because there's a lot of different there's ASL, which is American Sign Language, and there are other sign languages, you know, in different countries, um, and so they were kind of like, was that the one? Was that the person? Okay, give me if you don't mind, Dave, like looking at that because my recollection was that it was a guy that was doing the fake. So is this lady there the spokesperson? Oh, it happened again. What's the what is wrong with people? What like seriously? Seriously. Anyway, but do you remember that? Anyway, it's like no, you can't get by if you don't speak French, you don't get to be a French interpreter. If you can't program and you got out of the program by cheating, your career still is over. You might as well like if you're listening to my words right now, which again, if you're one of the cheaters, you're not, but if you were, drop the whole get out of school and go start doing something you're good at because cheating your way through is not going to help. Frozen, let me see radioactive, um, not in the realm of CS, but working conditions are pretty bad right now for people working jobs in fast food and some areas. Yeah, man. Okay, so confession today, I ate at Taco Hell. I'm not proud of that, okay, but I just needed something fast that was not like super filling and that was only loosely in the category of like food. So I swung through Taco Hell, and I'm at the window, and I can hear, like, I can't see, right? Because I've got like my view goes like, you know how you are. You're like this. I got a view this way in the window, and then there's like the machinery, the pop machine, whatever. And then around the corner, I can hear a guy, but I can't see him. And dude is like if you go to the dictionary and just look up douche, probably that guy's picture would be there. He was just like screaming and dropping F bombs and calling the worker a crackhead, you know, you effing crackhead. And apparently and the kid that he was being yelled at by this point had been real. The manager told the kid, like, you just go back there, like, get out of the line of fire. Kid pops over by me and kind of looks at me and he's kind of shaking. And I looked up at the guy from my car and I'm just going, shake it off, man. The guy's a douche. Like literally, and he's like, I'm like, what happened? He goes, he wanted to give us a torn in half dollar bill and we can't take torn in half dollar bills. It's like our policy. And he got, you know, so I'm like, oh man. And after he gave me my food order, I'm like, dude, do not let the a-holes get you down, man. So I don't know what, man, people are just no humanity, man. We've had this conversation, right? My core principles of interacting with other people on the planet is respect, kindness, human dignity, and to the extent you screw it up, you fix it. And we call that repentance. In any that's not a religious idea. That's a broadly philosophical idea. It's called give yourself permission to change and get better. And you know what I mean. And if you fail, you buck it up real fast. But what is wrong with you? You're ripping some poor schmuck who's making $10 an hour to serve you up your diet Pepsi, jeez. Oh, it makes me mad. But yeah, yeah. So I'm not disagreeing at all, radioactive. In fact, I've tended to get pretty generous with tips these days, partially because of that. You know, I did the other day. I drove through someplace, got a drink. It was like $3, and I dropped a $2 tip on it. It's like, man, these people are suffering enough. Okay, Brandon. Now that is outside of our space, right? Radioactive, unless it's one of the cheaters I'm talking about. Brandon, my biggest concern is that most places want 5+ years of experience. How do I get that when few employers want to take the risk on a fresh graduate? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My initial thoughts are that internships are more or less. Uh, did you mean to say trial, Brandon? If you can, you can also edit your post. But I think you said trial, but I think you meant trial employment for many companies, not something we're looking at. Absolutely. Yeah. And not only that, the internship gives you, there you go. Thanks, Brandon. The internship gives you the experience to check a box, put a resume with a name brand company, and I don't even care what the internship is doing. You know, I'll pick on Adobe because it's right over here near my house. Um, but if you do anything, if you're working if you're a security guard at Adobe, the first thing people see is Adobe. Do anything to get your foot in the door at a company where the name sounds technical. And then doing something technical even better. Another great way to get your foot in the door with internships is QA. Now, the barrier to entry to be a QA person is pretty low, but you can leverage that. And this is one of the other really big issues is kind of resume creation. And resume creation is about selling yourself and telling somebody else about why they want to hire you, what it is you have that they want, right? And so if you've been QA, but you're doing manual, I have a son who did this and leveraged it into a couple of really great jobs. But it started off, the first thing he did was QA, and it was manual QA, like literally working for a company, taking like a literal smartphone, downloading the app, and then like playing on the app on the phone to some specification. Well, first of all, you're testing software. You're learning about hardware configurations. You're learning about the OS. You're learning about, you articulate, don't just, sometimes you guys get into this like hyper humility mode where you're just like, I wasn't, I was just kind of a, you know, manual tester. I just played games. No, you learned about iOS, Android, Linux. You had to look at different configurations. You learned about what the different versions are. You might have learned about what the different features are, the different versions, the different smartphone, models, how to run, any kind of test harnesses. You had to, enter your bugs in Jira, right, as a bug tracking thing, or you took your tickets out of Jira. Everything you touch is something to give yourself credit for, not the least of which is just the name of the company that you're doing it for. Okay? That is a mondo bootstrap, starting with Brandon, who raised the question. But take anything, take anything. Also, being a TA, working in the tutorial lab, being a TA on campus. These are really great ways to do. If you're working at the Taco Hell where I was, you're taking crap from some idiot. Um, but if you're working fast food and you're a CS undergrad, be a TA. The department needs good TAs. It says professor trusted me. I had to be really good. I had to work with other students and had to do grading. Had to be a subject matter expert. Blah blah blah, and bounce around. Get more of that variety, and then it also makes you more literate when it's time to talk about stuff. Okay, this is really hardcore. This is good, like really, really solid employment stuff. Okay. Brandon also said, additionally, there's a lot of transferable knowledge between languages, but it feels like every company uses different languages and different frameworks. Yes, correct. How difficult is it to learn those alternative languages and frameworks from your experience? Okay, my experience is it's always a little bit of a pain in the arse. Just it's always a little bit of a pain. One of the reasons that we teach you 4450, which is analysis of programming languages, is so you understand you don't have to think of the world as Python or the world as Java or the world as C++. You understand different paradigms, functional programming, object-oriented programming, logic programming like SQL or Prolog. You understand notions like encapsulation and modularity and parameter passing and scoping and memory management. And there's the reason we teach you all this theory, like why don't they just teach me how to program in Python? It's all I need to know. Well, it's a little bit like if I only told you how to change the oil on one car, you're really not fit to go work at Jiffy Lube. Eventually, you've got to be able to understand the general principle that there is in almost every car an oil pan, that there's a screw, that there's a process. You got to know in different cars where to look for that different thing, different capacities, right? You know what I'm trying to say. And you learn some skills, but they're transferable. So every job for you to be transferable has to get you down to some level of theory, because then the theory means you can re-encapsulate that and apply it in a different space. But 4450 is the biggest thing, Brandon, relative to doing that. Also, I'll say this really boldly. A company that needs you to already program in language X today is a stupid company that doesn't deserve your skills. Okay? Your number one thing you need to do when you're doing hiring is bet on the horse. Meaning, what have you done? Done this, 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 this? Do you think you can learn this other thing? Oh, absolutely. You've never programmed in it. Nope. But I've done this, 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 and this. And in this other job, I picked that other thing up in a matter of weeks. This is how I do it. I dive in. CS is always about learning, and nothing that company is currently doing is going to be what it's doing in 5 years. So the notion that you have to be plug and play right now, what we sometimes call batteries included, that are going to take you right off the street and plug you in and you're going to write productive code this week. It's it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And usually companies that are doing that, it's not great management, or they really don't understand fundamentally what software development is about. Okay. Frozen, let me see. Oh, yeah, Frozen. So Frozen said I didn't necessarily agree with just an article I read. I'd be curious though. If you have it, Frozen, I'd be curious. And then Dave, we got the video, and the first line was, "It happened again." And I like dude over here on the right who's giving her the eye. But I will look at that. Oh my gosh. But there was a guy. Um, that's the guy. That's the guy. Okay, right, right. Steve posted it. Yes. I'm behind. I'm 11 minutes behind. That's the guy. It was like Nelson Mandela. It was not a small stage. Oh my gosh. That guy, wow. He was so bold. Oh, there we go, Dave, the mental model inside. Did you make that meme, Dave? Or did you find that? Just curious. Um, I'm catching up. Frozen said, I felt the same way, Brandon. I've applied to tons of internships and haven't gotten one yet. It can almost be disheartening. I think it probably could be fully disheartening. Yeah. But here's the thing. The market rewards a little bit of tenacity. Have some tenacity. Keep lowering your standards because you got to bootstrap somewhere. You can't just be like, well, this is all I want to do. And, you know, I don't think there's any experience on your resume that is technical that is bad and will hurt you. Okay. I really don't believe that. And your mileage may vary, but I really don't think so. I'm looking at, oh, Dave, you made it. Nice. Nice. No, that's exactly it, right? That's why maintaining software is so difficult. Um, Gidded said, I know it depends on the company and even by team, but how quickly would you say a junior dev needs to be up to speed after hiring? What's a good grace period? Okay, I would say, by the way, these are great. This is why I'm buying you guys pizza and why I love you so much. These are just really great questions. Killer, killer questions. Um, okay, so Gidded. It depends. It really depends. When you've got an environment with a really elaborate structure, lots of frameworks and 10 different tools you have to integrate to be productive. And, you might be 3 months before you're productive. And I'd say that's kind of a high end. And there are some environments where what they need you to do is so straightforward and so easy and within your skills that you are almost plug and play, but, a few days to a week would be the quickest imaginable. And 3 months, maybe even longer. But it depends on the complexity of the environment that you have to learn. That's the bottom line. Um, yeah, that's my take. Okay, Frozen. I'm looking at the picture. Oh, this is from employment of CS programmers is projected to decline 10%. And what I'm curious about, who posted that again, Frozen? What I'm curious about is whether they mean the rate of growth in programming in programmers is declining, or if the absolute percentage or volume number, because the notion that the absolute number of programmers is going to drop from 2020 to 2030, I would make a $100,000 bet on that not being the case. That it's going to literally decline or stay the same. It's going to grow. The only question is how much. Despite declining employment, about 9,700 openings for CS for computer programmers are projected each year on average over the decade. No, 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 no. Okay, look. In 2000, which was the last time I really went deep into the data, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the CS market worldwide, also we got to look at the scope of this thing, but the CS market worldwide was 50,000 new jobs a year, with CS programs only creating about 25,000 graduates. The notion of only 10,000 openings for programmers projected over that decade, that's just, to me, that's obviously we'll know later on, right? But I don't believe it for a second, you know? Um, Let me see, Micah. How do you handle imposter syndrome in the CS space? Oh, it's yes. Okay, let me address this. That's a great question. And relative to Frozen's, who said, "Oh, that's good. I thought the pizza was pity points." No, it really isn't. I really, honestly, you guys have been amazing. Especially when I've needed to be online, the interaction, the engagement. I mean, there's some that are just probably tuned out and playing some game or not even in the room or whatever. But whatever. For those that wanted to get something out of this, which is the majority, based on sort of active engagement. Yeah, it's been amazing. It's really been just fantastic. So I want to kind of also, as I've already shared, I'm leaving the university. So this is my last hurrah. I'd rather have the last day of class be pizza time with my great students. Okay, so Micah, always felt like I'm the newest, youngest, dumbest programmer around, and it's hard to feel like I'm actually making progress and doing good work. Oh man. Okay, right with you. Right with you. I feel you. There's a couple of issues. Okay, it's a little bit complex. There's like a Venn diagram at play here. Okay, there are those who. Okay, first of all, Micah, everybody at some level, everybody with any self awareness. If you have never felt imposter syndrome, you probably lack self awareness because most people, or an awareness of the social dynamics around you. That can be a blessed state. You know what I mean? If you have that advantage of just not dialing into those, it'll come with other costs. But anybody who's half aware has had the feeling of being like, they're going to find out what I really am, and they're going to fire my butt. You know what I mean? There's that feeling, right? Or that I have this degree, but I don't feel like I know anything. Now, you have to understand that there's kind of a spectrum here. There's a pathological imposter syndrome that is crippling, where you can't even apply for jobs because you feel like such an imposter. Okay, that's not healthy. That's a danger sign. That's a warning sign. And I'll be as sincere as I can possibly be because I joke around a lot, but I want to be really straight on this idea. If you feel paralyzed by imposter syndrome, you got to find a really good counselor, really good therapist, because you're dealing with a level of anxiety that is not commensurate with the reality. Does that make sense? And I mean that I'm putting two hands over my heart on this one, and putting on my best grandpa concern. I mean this as sincere as I can say it because I do know students who are freaking brilliant and they're immobilized by the feeling of inadequacy about everything. They're not dating for the same reason. They can't feel like they're worthy of the love of another person. A lot of times it goes back to bullcrap from childhood, and there's a lot of, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not that kind of doctor. Um, and I've seen people so paralyzed that they find it very difficult to get a job that matches their actual knowledge and their experience because they always undersell themselves. Okay, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's not accurate. So again, I sincerely suggest get a counselor, get a therapist, somebody that can walk through with you and help you to realize, you know, how good you are and overcome the things that are pulling you back to something in the past that isn't even a thing anymore. And okay, so there's that. That's an extreme version that really needs treatment. And again, I'm not being a smartass like I normally am. I'm being really sincere on that. Um, Now, there's another version of that where we come into something new. Remember the orders of ignorance, right? We always start immersed in ignorance, and ignorance is where we learn. So every new job is a plunge into ignorance. And some of you learn faster than others. Well, if you're a really quick read, if you pick up very, very quickly, you can take a deeper plunge, take a bigger chance. And usually you figure that out about yourself and you go. But let's say you feel like I move really slow. Fine. your market value, whether this is fair or not, I'm not talking about what's fair, but if you pick things up slower, probably you have other aspects and things that are real assets. Um, but initially your market value is going to be lower because you're going to be perceived to be slower moving. On the other hand, if you love it and you're still making better money than if you had decided to stay and be the manager at that Taco Hell where I got my three crunchy tacos today, you know. You know what I'm saying? Just understand what your actual attributes and skills are. Find a position that leverages that and find that happy spot, where you feel content. There are some of you that perpetually need to be pressed and stretched into the next thing. And that's where you're happiest. Some of you need to acquire competence and then just stay there. And there's nothing right or wrong about any of these. It's very personal, it's very individualized. But I would say acquire enough self awareness to figure out where you are. Does your imposter syndrome, Micah, feel, because I will tell you, everybody feels it. Everybody feels incompetent out of the chute. Um, but is it overly extreme? Okay. If it's overly extreme, that's a problem and you got to get treatment. If it's big, think about to what extent. There's the other factor, which is sometimes, so like one of my friends likes to say, just because there is a thing called imposter syndrome doesn't mean there aren't imposters. This is a separate issue, which is people who really aren't competent, but who just seem to walk around forever doing crazy crap that breaks the world, you know? And they are actually imposters. That's not a syndrome. That's just imposters. But I think that those guys, I think they go to bed at night and there's a voice that haunts them still that they're going to be found out. But that's like a legitimate find out that they really are incompetent. The key would be to just recognize that all learning happens at the boundaries and the frontier of ignorance, like we talked about a couple months ago. Yeah, that's key to just remember that, you know. But anyway, but Micah, man, if just understand that everybody starts to feel like the newest, dumbest, youngest programmer. And the key is throw yourself in and recognize that everybody feels that way. And if your management is just like, nope, you're not picking it up fast enough, well, then find a different place to work where they'll appreciate you. And in the CS industry, again, some of these things where you're trying to get internships aside, there are jobs, and you may not, if you're a slower read, you may have to start a little lower on the spectrum in terms of pay, but you can still make that career, still do that thing. Um, so Sam said we had a big amen party on. Sam said feel the same way to Micah. Braden said the same thing. Steve, working our way down here. We got about 20 minutes to roll here. Other than programming, what would you say is the greatest skill to develop to thrive in the software engineering field? Okay. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to lump it together, Steve, and say, other than sort of the hard skills, which would be not just programming, but theory, understanding. I'm taking it like out of the normal core CS classroom. Okay, Steve? Because programming is only part of being a software developer when you're only looking at the development, because there's design, there's understanding and intuiting, order of magnitude, that kind of stuff. Complexity theory, actually really important. Um, Let me see. The biggest thing that I would say, Steve, is probably communication, writing, verbal skills. You've got to be able to express yourself. If you're killing it, but you can't communicate that to anybody, then as far as the company is concerned, you're not killing it. If you are trying to get a promotion to be more of a senior type engineer, there's not a lot of room for like, I'm a good coder, I'm a better coder, I'm the best coder, therefore I'm ready to be a senior engineer. Senior engineers have to be able to mentor other people. They have to be able to take leadership. They have to communicate ideas. You might have to be like, a sprint lead or an epic lead or some kind of a lead of some project that your company is going to deal with. How can we make you the lead if you can't communicate to everybody else what's going on? Or writing up the spec, or writing tickets for how you're going to partition out this job, this particular, project, right? All of that's communication. And so it's really more the soft skills. People skills and communication are most of where you guys will tend to suffer because usually you get into CS because you're really good at it. I remember a guy once at Novell who said, we were talking about writing, and he had written, his writing was just horrible. You always had to go get time with him because you couldn't understand what he wrote. And I remember him saying to me once, he's like, I loathe writing. That's why I became a programmer. Okay, fine. It is a fact that on the first layoff, after I heard him say that, on the very next layoff, he was gone. Now, I don't know what all the dynamics were, right? But I would say that just simply saying, I loathe writing, that's why I became a programmer, is not what I would think of as a particularly progressive, self aiding kind of attitude. You know, that's what I'd say, Steve. All right. Isley, my biggest gripe's being able to apply to many companies and only getting a few emails back. Yeah, yeah, no, I feel you on that. I don't know what to say. Also, seeing internship posts on LinkedIn and noticing that there's 200 plus applications already and feeling like it's worthless to apply. Okay, but this comes back. Okay, Isley, this comes back to how you sell yourself in your resume. Some of you don't say what you really do or what you really can do. Your resume is just mush, and your resume needs to be, dolled up, and that's back to communication. Okay, but it's got to jump out and say you have the skills that I need. um, Brandon said, I have a friend who just started for wow, actually working for MongoDB in customer support. His learning period is like 6 months to a year. Well, and for customer support, you can't be narrow, right? I presume, Brandon, right? You can't just be narrow. Um, Frozen piled on to the amen to Micah's comment. That really hit a chord, Micah. Great comment. Spencer said, I was really fortunate to get into my current internship. I actually worked at a bakery. Nice. And this kid I became good friends with, his mom worked for the state and she put my name in. First time I interviewed, they didn't accept me because I was fairly new in school. Then I got a random call from the hiring manager and he had thought of me and offered me a job. That was 8 months after your first interview. There you go. Yeah, you got to be persistent, and that's hard. That's hard. I mean, it can be a little discouraging. I would say though that the one thing that will hurt you resume wise. Oh, and by the way, there's an old rule of thumb that people will be like, "What's that gap in your resume? I see there's some gap in your resume. What, were you in jail? You know, were you were you a crackhead working for Taco Hell? What happened?" Right? And here's the thing. That's a myth. In my opinion, it's a myth. Put the experience that's relevant. If you're currently working at Taco Smell, don't put it. That's my opinion. You're going to school. That occupies whatever. Nobody looks and goes, hey, hey, there's a 6 month gap right there. Nobody does that. And if they do, they got problems. Okay? So don't worry about it. You want it to read like boom technology, boom, boom, technology, boom. And they're just going to go, I like this kid. They're not going to be looking and wondering what you're doing. And if you're like, then I went to Taco Bell, then I got a TA job, then I went back to, Wallabies. No, don't do it. Don't do it. If any, but do get some kind of work that has something technical even if you've got to do it for dirt cheap, and by dirt cheap I mean $15 an hour. Under no condition would I go less than $15 an hour. There's nothing anyone's going to have you do in technology that is worth less than $15 an hour. Chuck's opinion. I swear. I swear that it's my opinion. Um, Dave, the ghosting is awful. Resumes into the abyss is so disrespectful. A polite no is all I need. Yeah, man. Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Get it. Software developers QA. Is this the same organization? Is this not the same article that was posted earlier, right? By Frozen. BLS.gov. BLS.gov. Different. That's a different article, right? Get it. Median pay in 2020. That's across the entire field. 110K per year. That has gone up in the last 2 years. Number of jobs total. Job outlook. 22%. I don't know what that means exactly. Yeah, they expect to add another 400,000 people, being 22%. So they're expecting, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's expecting a 22% growth overall over that 10-year period, not a 10% decline. Dave, nice lead. Yeah, that's dinner date material right there, Dave. Thank you. Did you create that, Dave? You've already got a track record going. Hang on. Dave, did you create that meme? Because I think not that one. You did. I'm going to give Dave the lead on owning the chat so far, though. For the other one, the mental model. Okay. So Frozen said, I only have about a little over a year left, Micah, and still at times I feel there are people who've spent less time in the degree, but no more than me. That, okay, let me keep reading. I still struggle with the terminology, but I have to remind myself it's just like learning a language. It takes time. Many people with jobs have told me that stays even once you graduate. Yeah, no, it's true. But here's the thing: just understand there are people who learn faster than other people, and if you're one of the people that learns slower, you do have a professional disadvantage. But there are jobs all the way up and down the spectrum. If you want to be at the cutting edge, creme de la creme, highest pay, you want to go to work for Google, and you're not one of the people that learns the very fastest, you're not going to go to Google. That's okay, you know? And there's going to be certain things that you can do that you'll enjoy, and it's just a matter of giving it patience to get there. I've probably beaten that pretty well. Um, Matthew, what's the difference between your data and Frozen's? One is for developers, the other's for programmers. Yeah, I agree with you, Matthew. I'm not sure what that is. Isley says tons of people also have imposter syndrome. Most notable one is Neil Armstrong. Yeah, because the moon landing was staged. Also, I'm not really Dr. K. I'm actually an infant. This is um this is my grandson. Well, it's one of my grandsons. Anyway, no, the moon landing, yeah. And the world is flat. Um, yeah, no, great man. That article looks great, Isley. I did not know that Neil Armstrong felt sort of imposter syndrome. But it's good to at least just know, that look, you're not unusual. Matthew said, man, the imposter syndrome really. Okay, no, I'm gonna give Micah the lead. I'm giving I'm sorry, Dave. I'm giving Micah the lead for coughing up a topic that has so much legs. Matthew said, I can relate to feeling this way. One thing that amazes me is to see my superiors at my job. They all have such different emphasis in CS emphases and don't know a lot that the others do, but yet each is so crucial to the job. Yes, yes. Um, but I've been surprised how much I've already been able to help as a newbie as I just try to keep learning. Of course, there's a lot I don't know still, but I've learned that's okay. There's a huge width of possible knowledge. Also, having connections with people in the tech industry seems to be really helpful in getting internships and jobs. It's one of the main trends I've noticed at my current job. Okay, yeah, no, excellent, Matthew. I really appreciate that. Okay, radioactive. It's a video. Buzz Aldrin punches conspiracy theorist moon landings. Punches a conspiracy theorist over moon landings. Well, okay, Bart Sibrel confronts. Yeah, I could get punched by Neil Armstrong. Exactly. Um, one of the okay, one of the original. Man, it wasn't Neil Armstrong, but it was one of the. It was one of the original Apollo astronauts that walked. I don't know if they walked on the moon, but one of the original crew of that first Apollo was it? What was it? Apollo 11. Went to high school with my mom in Venice, California. Let's put that in your, claim to fame category. That's right up there. That's on the opposite end of the spectrum with my dad once gave a ride to a hitchhiker who turned out to be a serial killer. That's actually true. Um, no, they have the differences. No, I mean, so Bart, this dude's going to confront him, claiming the moon landings are fake. I think Buzz Aldrin would actually know, probably, if he was there or not. Oh man, people, people are crazy. Ah man. Okay, well, here's another one because we're almost out of time. Nobody's asked this one, and I'm actually caught up on the chat. Weirdly, amazingly, negotiation, salaries, and whatnot. You guys want to know a little bit about that? I assume. Um, here's a reality. Hiring managers operate within budgets, and just as part of the dynamic, it's not nobody's doing anything wrong. Um, some companies, some companies will give a hiring manager a spot with a pretty dynamic range. They can hire more senior, less senior, but more often than not, they hire to a particular band. You're going to hire a senior software engineer or a junior software engineer or a staff engineer. They're going to have a scale, and the scale has these ranges. Now, if your manager can get you for a range that is lower than otherwise, that is to your manager's advantage. Not because they're a bad person. This is that free market we've often talked about. If I can get you for more than you're currently making, but less than the peak of what I can do, I've got room to do a number of things. First of all, if I can do that a couple times, I can have another engineer, right? If I have five developers at 20% below market value, I can pick up a sixth developer. That's better for me to get the job done, to be productive, to do what the company's trying to have me do. Okay. And the reality is, if you're making $70,000 and a company offers you 80, you're happy. If you're making 100 and the same company, two folks, two people, right? He's making 70K, she's making 100K. They both interview for the same job and they have similar experience, similar degrees. Luck of the draw, who interviewed better, I don't know why, but they're different, right? And they each get an offer for 80K. He's happy because he got a $10,000 rate raise. She's not, maybe not offended, but not impressed. Like, well, that's not going to get my services. Like you're $20,000 less than I'm already making. So the reality is that knowing what you currently make is relevant, and I always ask, and I think it's fair to ask, because what I want to do in recruiting somebody is give them a bump, but I want to give them a bump that feels good And all the other thing is if I tap out on the rate, I'm also limited on the raises I can give. If I can get you for 10,000 more, 5,000 more, a little more than you currently make, then I've got budget left over that I can give you a nice raise, give you another raise, then we get you a promotion and give you a bigger bump. I've got to manage to those expectations. And really that's all it is. There's no objective value for, a developer working for a company. There's no objective value for your services. It doesn't exist. It's always subjective, and it's always about managing to your expectations. The other thing, I've had people that I've done this where I've brought them on kind of high, peaked them out pretty quick, and all of a sudden, I remember I had a guy, crap, man, this was 23 years ago. He was making $100,000 23 years ago. Okay, let's just say this was a really, really good salary. Well, guess what? When it's 23 years ago and you're making $100,000 as a senior engineer, and he was great, by the way, and you're dealing with the pay scales with the company, I couldn't ever get him more than about 2 or 3% a year. And he was like, I once got a 12% raise. I'm like, well, I bet you never got a $12,000 raise. You might have gotten a 12% raise when you were making 50K, which is 6K. But that's a 6% raise when you're making this much money. You gotta be fair about the fact that as you tap out the dollars, the amount of raises you can get go down. When you're below, you can get bigger raises. So again, it's always about managing expectations when you're the manager. Oh, 2 minutes. Some of the questions I've often gotten is, should you, if you don't feel it's good, can you push back? And the answer is absolutely. And any company that would be offended at you pushing back is not a company you want to work with. This is not like, you're just privileged to work for them. Now, maybe you've been rejected on 20, if you've been rejected on 20, interviews in a row and don't have a job yet, and then somebody makes you an offer and it's below market value for where you are right now, $50,000, let's say, take it. Take it. You're, because now you're proving people don't want to make an original decision. They want to know, oh, you worked at Adobe? In their mind, she must be really good. She worked at Adobe. Then I don't have to think as hard, And that's why if you get a high name brand on your resume, you go to Google, you go to Amazon, you whatever, right? Um, okay, Dave. Okay, I'm sorry, Micah. Dave just seized back the chat. Dave just came from nowhere in the last minute to win the chat. I'm sorry, Micah. I'm glad we agree, Micah. I think Dave, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's just, Dave came from behind, never gave up, man. Just never gave up. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. No, it's never wrong to you be respectful, use your best communication skills, don't be manipulative, but just say, hey, how much room do I have? And sometimes they'll say, um, no, Frozen Dave, Dave, this is legendary, man. To come waltzing out. Now there's another one with you can remake this one with Dave. Dave comes from behind, strolling out from behind, whatever that is, to win the chat. Oh my gosh. Well, listen, I got to cut loose. So do you. Man, this has been great, great discussion. But there's never anything wrong with negotiating or just saying, hey, how much wiggle room do you have on that? They'll tell you. And if they really want you, they'll say, let me see what I can do. And if they say it's really the best I can do, then that's it. Don't go round and round. That's just going to burn credibility and they're going to wonder what you're like when you're working for them. Okay. I will see you. We have two goes, two times more, and then it's Nico's. Two and Nico's. All right. Great discussion, everybody. Kudos, Dave. Just like North Carolina going to the championship.